Hey friends, welcome to Village Trails. This time, this is going to be much about a review of the bike after it has gone through the first service and about 100 kilometers after it has been serviced. I wanted to do a full review of a long 100-kilometer ride after this first service, and today we are just starting on that. It's quite late that I've started in the morning. First, let me give you a background. At 620 kilometers, the first sensor light, O2 sensor light or engine light, had turned on, and then earlier I had planned that I'll do 1,000 kilometers and then only go for the first service. But since the sensor light had come up and it had already decently done 600 plus kilometers, I decided to go ahead and do the first service. When I took the bike for the first service, the experience was very good at Shakti Automobiles and Tathavde here in Pune. And I took the bike. They said okay, they will need a full day for the servicing, and I had also mentioned about the O2 sensor. So there were a couple of minor things which I had asked them to look at. One was the basically the way the gear shifted between first and second gear. Sometimes it's stuck at neutral, not really stuck, but maybe I'm a new rider, so that's why it could be one of the reasons why I'm not getting it right. But I asked them anyway to look at it. I asked them to check the clutch cable also. Last time we had done some adjustment. I wanted some more adjustment to be done. Apart from that, one major thing or rather something which I knew, since it's a new bike, it has to do the run-in period and first service has to be done. I just highlighted to them that the engine sound, specifically the clatter part, I wanted them to look at it. So all said and done, they asked me to come in the evening and pick up the bike. By that time they said that they will get it all done. You can see the total cost of first service was 2,475 rupees. I received a call at 4:30 that I could come and collect the bike after it's being washed. So I was there at around 4:45, 5 o'clock, and the bike wasn't washed, which is okay because they wanted me to first check everything. They took a test ride themselves, checked the O2 sensor light, it was gone, and yes, they washed the bike and gave me. I had to wait for about 40-45 minutes, did the payment, and took home the bike. So first things first, if you noticed, I have mentioned about O2 sensors, not just one sensor but two sensors. Now the thing is, I got the bike after the first service. I rode it for about 50-60 kilometers, and then I noticed that the light had come up again. And my only worry was whether it was the same sensor that they replaced or it was the second sensor. There are three sensors in this bike, as I have been told. And when I took the bike again to them after about 3-4 days of its first service, I was told that earlier they had fixed the left sensor, not fixed, but they had replaced it, and now it is the right sensor which is showing up in the codes. So no problem, they said. You leave the bike for a couple of hours and we'll get it done and we'll let you know. Now I didn't leave the bike the same day because I had some other important meetings. So I came home, and then next day I went there, and I told them that look, I'll be conducting few team meetings, so I'll wait in their lobby while the work is being done. So as promised, they took up the bike, they got the second sensor replaced, and in about an hour and a half I was handed the bike again. And this ride is particularly happening after the second sensor replacement, just to be sure. Now it is another thing that how did these sensors get uh, damaged or whatever malfunctioned. That's another case because that's much of Yezdi's problem. Obviously it's manufacturing defect. Some vendor could have supplied them the sensors, and the sensors, basically a particular batch, might not be good. So that's swept aside, or that's kept aside, that topic. What I really liked is no questions asked. They just did a short video of the bike, tested it, and they replaced it. That means it's a known problem. and they have owned up to it and they have resolved it. So that's good, something which really builds some trust into the brand. One similar story which I can very quickly tell here or share here is I owned a Hyundai Verna in 2006, the first 100 batch VGT, the diesel 110 horsepower one in Bangalore, and it had a manufacturing defect that the radiator basically leaked, and suddenly you found that the engine temperature will go up and there is no coolant left in the tank and the radiator. So they had a recall on the vehicle, and when I had taken them this particular car for that problem, they flagged it off and they replaced the radiator. So as long as manufacturers are getting this done right, I mean, customers should have peace of mind. So coming back to the bike part now, the second important thing which I had informed the service center was the engine knocking, or more not knocking but more of like clutter sound, or that sound was not really looking comfortable. Now whatever I have been riding today, this particular sound is almost non-existent to me. I mean, because I've been riding it before the service and post the service, I can see a noticeable difference. The engine has become much more relaxed. There is no gruffness, and even the loudness has been reduced, and the clutter sound is almost non-existent. So very much I can say that is the first service is a very important service. You shouldn't be really making judgments before the service has been done. The bike really has to go through the run-in period. Okay, so two of the known problems have their resolutions being done after the service. The third one, which basically I myself found that it is more of like partly me responsible for it, and partly there could be a problem in the particular gear shifting. So what I realized now, whatever 40-50 kilometers I have rode so far, I realized that that particular shifting from first gear to second gear has become smoother. I won't say it's not sleek. It has become smoother. It is much better than what it was earlier, and this is something acceptable to me. I will have to drive it some more, maybe another 500 or 1000 kilometers to give feedback on it. But so far so good. Even that problem where finding the second gear after the first was getting difficult, I would write it off right now, or I'll just put it for later review. Now I would like to talk more about my own riding experience of this bike. I have not driven any other bike of any other manufacturer prior to this, and the one that I had ridden, which was a TVS Victor bike, that too 20 years ago. Now as a first time rider, I would say that initially the weight, getting used to the weight of the vehicle was a challenge. That is no more a challenge at all, I would say right now, except in situations where you have pushed the bike into a very uncomfortable position, either on a slope or in some sand or very, what you call, loose ground, where moving it around becomes very difficult. That was more from the context of moving a stationary bike, but when it comes to maneuvering it on the road, when it is in motion, I would say it feels as light as any bike can be. It has power, it has a very nice, well balanced posture, and I've never found being uncomfortable overtaking, braking basically in areas where you have to do some sudden braking, specifically in crowded areas or traffics when there are sudden brakes you need to apply, and even in twisting turns and bends also, as long as you are in the right speed. One thing about this bike I have really noticed, and noticed it very well, you need to be in the right gear at the right speed. So typically I have seen, like, when you are a less than 10 kilometer speed or between 5 and 10, first gear is okay. Second gear you could start somewhere around 8 or 10 kilometers, shift it into second, and then at 15 you can move to gear number 3, which you can pull up to 25, and from there you can go to gear number 3. But between 3 and 4, that ideal speed should be between 25 and 33 or 30 kilometers, depending on whether it's a slope, it's a plane, or it's a hill. But again, all I want to mention here is that you can't be in very high gears in very low speed. The engine might stall, but more than stalling, I would say you will see the engine knocking. So all I can say is that this getting used to these gear ratios is going to be an interesting thing if you are upgrading from some other bike which has very smooth gears and differently tuned engine and gear speeds. The other thing I want to really mention here is this bike is quite addictive. I mean, riding it has been for me a very fantastic experience. I have been riding more or less the same route. This is my third time, I think, on the same route, and each time I come here, one, the road condition is good, but two, it's more like it's so comfortable accelerating, braking, turning around. There are a couple of nice, I won't say ghats as such, but winding roads, uphill roads, and it has been always a delight to be on this bike. Different conditions, morning, afternoon, evening, I have been there, and that's what I want to say. It's quite addictive. You will always want to come back again and again and be always riding it. I have been gearing up to prepare for long rides. That's my intent. I'm not sure when I'll be ready, but this is the drill for it, you may say. Few things I noticed and I realized on this bike. One by one, I'm just trying to find ways to tackle them. And this has nothing to do with the engine or bike per se, but these are more like the comfort that you need if you are going to do long distance rides. The first and foremost, I would say, is the lack of USB charging. So I have to carry extra, what do you call, rechargeable source, power source with me to charge my phone, which I have now kept it in my pocket. There are no holders as such. I'm just trying to find a way to circumvent this problem as such. But yeah, this is one problem I can say, or not having a USB charging socket out there. You can always fit it as an accessory, and that's, I think, I'll end up getting done in near future. The second thing which I noticed is just like few bikes of TVS or RE, they have a navigator or some mechanism as to basically have the navigation, routes, directions in the display itself. There is nothing like it. The display here is pretty plain, simple, and basic, typical of a retro bike. No complaints about it as such, because you always end up having alternatives, which is like probably a phone holder and leaving the phone on the bike, and this problem can be solved. So I won't say this as a major drawback, but more of a nice to have kind of thing in future if there is a mechanism for Yezdi to bring into this bike. The third thing I wanted to highlight, though I myself have never experienced it yet or found a need for it yet, is the traction control. I was told that there is a capability in this bike for traction control, but it has not been either provided into the software or they have a plan to activate it at a later date. But I haven't reached a stage where I would say that this feature is what has been a drawback so far. Maybe I'm riding on roads which are very well laid out, the speeds are very different. Let's see. I mean, in the coming few months, when I start doing long rides, I'll be able to identify where exactly the need for traction control would be. Braking has been always so assuring. I have never found myself in a situation where I was in panic mode or unsure mode whether the brakes would really stop the bike or not. Whether it's the downhill or whether it abrupt stopping, there were few incidents where someone taking a sudden turn and I had to stop the bike from a speed of, let's say, 40 or 40 plus at a certain stopping distance, obviously, but yeah, it was always good. My way of riding, I try to rely a lot, or rather 60% on the engine braking, 30 to 40% on the actual brakes, just to be sure, and taking those maneuvers in advance. Basically, a biker with his family zooming past me at a very high speed, I'm not sure whether he had turned off the bike as well, the engine of the bike. So for him this may be a daily route and he's very comfortable doing those maneuvers. So this has become a long video. Indeed, it was a long ride too. But few things I want to summarize here very quickly. So if you ask me, do I regret buying this bike? It's a big resounding no, not at all. It was an intentional choice, decision. The bike has lived up to its expectations and it's basically maturing, I would say, or rather getting more and more in tune with the rider itself. So all I can say is it is a gem of a machine from where I stand, putting so much money in it and obviously getting the value for it. So far so good, many more miles to come, and I would say first impressions, yes, it is a damn good bike. So well done, Yezdi. I'm not sure about the situation of the earlier version of it, but this version and the engine, the ride and handling has been superb, fantastic, great. The second part comes, which at least I would say 20 to 25 people that I have met, particularly coming and admiring the bike, the way it looks, and the comparison or the thoughts that come to their mind is like it really looks like a Harley, and being a shadow black color, you don't see the logo and that thing, that it's not that obvious. So these are the impressions I've seen of people in our society, outside, wherever I have parked it. People have come, have had a look at it and admired it. So again, great job, Yezdi, there, I would say. And yeah, so I would say that yes, I haven't driven it beyond a certain distances, but experiences I'll be sharing as we go along, as basically this ownership goes from 1 month to 6 months, like that. Different routes, I'm sure, and there could be different challenges too. Stay tuned. Hereafter, I'll leave the route for you to watch and enjoy. We'll come up with another review in few days, and hoping for the best. Thanks for watching so far. Thank you.